From the Internet of Things to the Internet of Everything. That really explains itself certainly in the title. So please welcome to the stage the moderator. The moderator, get himself ready. Moderator who's going to shape this discussion in the right direction, naturally. Please welcome to the stage General Manager of IBTK, Jamil Al-Khatib.
Thank you, Jafar, first for this exciting break between the panels, and I hope it's refreshing and giving some vision for our future for this panel. So please allow me to introduce my panel. Please join me onto the stage so we get more time. Yeah, please. So. Okay, so please allow me to introduce, starting from Jamil, because we share the same name. So Jamil Asfour is a known contributor to a Global Innovation Index and Global Connectivity Index. He also worked for Fortune 500 technology companies in digital transformation such as IBM, HP, EY, and he headed special projects in Apple. Omar Christides is a founder of ArabNet, the leading events, media, and research company for the Arab digital industry. They are organizing different conferences for professionals, startups, and working in the field of ICT. Haider Frihat is Director of Technology for Development Division of Esquad, which is focusing on supporting technologies in the region for better economy. Besides that, he works on a research for IoT in the region. Asma Shabab heads the marketing for IBM Watson Internet of Things. She is supporting making things smarter through AI. She also sits on the board of CMO Council Middle East and the College of Media Mass Communications at the American University in UAE. And Salam Yamout is a computer engineer with more than 30 years of experience. She is the regional director of the Internet City Society, and she sits on the board of the MIT Enterprise Forum for the Pan-Arab region. Finally, Dr. Amr Abu Sliman is the B2B marketing director at Orange Jordan. He has diverse international experiences in the US, Europe, Asia, and he is mainly wide experience in IT and business consultancy, especially in the process performance through technologies. So before we start our discussion, I'd like to share something that came back to me after 20 years. I can't forget this moment when I just came back home having an access to that thing that is called internet. It was a very exciting moment because I wanted to explore these opportunities, these potentials of the innovative thing that is connected to my computer, which is the internet. But at that time, I wasn't expecting that it will affect my life and it will change my life and work forever. Now, I start this internet that moved from being just an exciting thing that I want to understand to become more a tool that make my things more exciting by connecting them and enabling them to understand first me, myself, and control my mobile, my watch, my home, and probably now is controlling my life. So I will start with this discussion. I want to know more from our panelists and from you as well how to change our lives from the internet to the internet of everything. So let me start with Jamil again. So this is a biased. It's hard to find two Jamils in the same panel. So in your opinion, what are the differences between Internet of Things and Internet of Everything? And why do you think it's important to have it and talk about it now?
I think we have, thank you very much. This is a very broad question. I'm going to try to answer it in a few minutes. But for the audience, we have 19 trillion reasons for us to tune in and listen why Internet of Everything is the future. It's projected by 2025 that we'll have $19 trillion worth industry. There will be actually 50 billion devices on the internet by 2020. But what does this mean? Internet of Things is very simple. It's connecting things, which are your sensors, your phones, your computers, anything physical together. What makes up the Internet of Everything? In order for us to understand this, I'd like to pause for a minute as an engineer and enjoy really God's creations. One of them is humans. We look at humans every day. We have a body and a brain. We have senses. These senses, which are we touch, we feel, we smell, they generate a lot of raw data. This data is connected to the body, transported actually to the brain through the internet, I'd say. Would like to think of the brain as the artificial intelligence. I don't want to go into details through artificial neural networks and etc., but we take this raw data, we start making sense out of it, and it gets transported back into the body to make a certain action. For instance, I can enjoy or recognize the smell of a flower. The Internet of Things is simply connecting these things together. The Internet of Everything is actually treating the human body as an object, which we have your Twitter accounts, your social media, you have your wearable devices, the process of connecting things together, the Internet of Things, you have data, raw data, making sense out of it, and the process, all of these together is the Internet of Everything. But why is this also important? Of course, thanks to IPv6, today we have 340 undecillion IP addresses. So we're expecting to connect a lot of things together. And 50 billion devices, that's probably 2020, that's more than 5 devices per person. But imagine you have more than 1,000 devices that you're connecting together. How would you react? You need to actually transform artificial intelligence to ambient intelligence, and that's the evolution of Internet of Everything. It can also save lives. I'd like to mention last month, we've had a tragedy in Genoa, Italy, when the bridge collapsed. If we have installed the right sensors and we were able to grasp the right data off of these sensors to understand when was the last maintenance, when do we need to maintain this bridge, we could have rerouted the traffic and saved 30 lives. In addition, the city could have easily actually solved the cost optimization issue that we had. But I'll leave it up to everyone to comment on it.
Okay, thanks. So, Haider, how about the IoT in general? How do you think it will contribute our digital economy in our countries, in MENA region, and in general in the developing countries?
Yeah, thank you. And let me start by some emotions here. In the year 1989 or 1990, a colleague in the university in the US asked me to come to him and say, come see. So I sat there and he was communicating through something. Later on I knew it's the internet with a person in Germany. Later on the browser was created. Later on it was called the internet. Some years later it proliferated in all countries of the world. Some years later some new bundles were added to the internet and started to call Internet 2.0. Then now we hear Internet of Things, and 5 seconds after we learned the new term Internet of Things, we have a new term Internet of Everything. So we are talking about an overwhelming speed of this thing that is coming to us. Now, to answer your question, Jamil, I think it's very important for us to realize that this is a huge thing. It's like a dinosaur. If you are next to the head, you cannot see the tail. If you are next to the tail, you cannot see the head. Therefore, we need specializations to deal with this new phenomena. And let me tell you, from our observations, especially in the United Nations in the last number of years, the governance of the ordinary classical internet, the world is struggling. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed. The International Internet Governance Forum was created, and it meets every year. Every year, between 1,000 and 2,000 people meet in order to negotiate and discuss the internet issues. In the Arab world, in the MENA region, we have created the Arab Internet Governance Forum to regulate and deal with internet issues. Now, with this new dinosaur, I think even the internet governance forums, the international and the local, cannot deal with such a huge phenomena as and when it becomes at its maturity. So therefore, in order to slice this dinosaur, I think the government has stakes, of course, in terms of regulating. The technology people, they have to do their part in technology. The mobile provider, because there's one perspective, one layer of Internet of Things and Internet of Everything is from the ISP provider perspective. The other day I was looking at a report called the Arab Advisors Report on Internet of Things, and to my astonishment, it was always talking about this Internet of Things from an ISP perspective, totally different perspective. So therefore, it's a huge beast, and everyone needs to look at it. Also, there is an international dimension to it. Finally, there's an economic dimension to it, which you want to shed light on. I think the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, as my colleague, the other Jamil, just mentioned, that we have 50 billion nodes or devices or things, divided by 7 billion population. So each human being will have, let's say, 5 to 6 sensors or things belonging to him. He himself or she is another thing in the group. So we're talking about huge economic opportunities. We're talking about huge threats. We're talking about a game changer. It's not only disruption, it's a game changer. I'm getting a little bit emotional here, but although I'm supposed to be objective and cool on these matters, but I think we all here in this room, we need to beware and we need to keep a good eye on this thing, because it's coming in any way. Let me just finish with this little example. I am building a house right now here in Amman, and I want to make it a smart home. And then an ordinary electrician, not the engineer, came to me and they said, listen, Mr. Owner, anything that has an on-off switch will be connected in your house. So this is not Internet of Things, it's only a house thing. It's the intranet of my house. So imagine the Internet of Everything, where all sensors, all devices, with even a stupid device with an on and off switch will be able to be considered as an authenticated node on the Internet. It's a huge thing. It's something to be of interest to every stakeholder, but to consider myself or yourself as the one and only who will deal with all Internet of Things issues, this is a mistake. The last thing I want to second on my colleague Nasser Jamil, were about the IPv6. I think the MENA countries, the Arab region, just like the rest of the world, need to do an extensive and courageous program on moving to IPv6, because the Internet of Things is coming anyway, whether we like it or not. It's not going to consult us, it's coming. So therefore, the ABC of preparation for it is having a IPv6 protocol in the region.
Thank you for summarizing a lot of points in this, and we'll discuss more with the other colleagues. So Asma, I would like to build on what Haider mentioned. In the 90s, we started the whole process of digitization and moving to the internet. But now, how do you consider Internet of Things? Is it a next step in this process, or is it just a hype or technology hype?
So that's a very interesting question, and I've been thinking about how to answer it, and then I realized I don't need to. If we've been focusing and listening to whatever we've been talking about, whether it was the panel on smarter cities, it was on cybersecurity, it was on apps, or it was on e-commerce, every time someone or the other mentioned connected cars, mobile devices, connections, sensors. So we know that it's not a hype. It's a part of the conversation that we are having right now. And it's a crucial part of the way that we live and experience the world. Now, I'm going to go back and maybe mention a couple of trends that has brought us to a place where we're talking about IoT so much. We know that sensors have become really cheap. You can get a sensor for less than $2, put it on a thing, and this thing starts to create data. The second thing is now we've got cloud solutions. So that means that this data is now accessible anywhere and everywhere. And then, of course, there is connectivity. And Amar is going to speak more about it, but the reality is that we are now able to access information in real time and respond to it. So when these three things combine together, essentially what we're doing is we are now digitizing the physical world. And what I like to call is that we are providing a force of animation to a thing that was not communicating with us before. Now, the implications of this is huge. For example, we've got sensors and communication capabilities in contact lenses. The tables are now able to talk to us, and they're throwing data to us, and they're able to communicate to us. But the beauty is that we are now able to respond in real time, right? So we have now this dialogue going on with things that we were never able to talk to before. And this issue is so pervasive, just as Jamil mentioned that there are going to be 50 billion devices. Well, we know that by 2020, 90% of the cars on the road are going to be connected in some way or the other. In essence, all of these things are now creating more and more data. So then IoT really becomes a conversation about a different type of data that you're getting. But the value of this data, and this is where I find it to be really interesting, is we never had access to this data before, right? So if you just look at a connected car, we are now able to understand how many times a driver presses his foot on the brake pedal. So now we have an understanding of what is the driver's capabilities. What is the implication of that? Think about the insurance agency. Right now, they can really create a customized insurance designed for just one individual. So then there's a lot of personalization happening as well. So then essentially, I think that it's not a hype, but it's an inherent part of the conversation that we're having based on the fact that the data now available was never accessible before.
Okay, thanks. So I'll come back to Amr. How, as a telecom operator, and we are talking about infrastructure, in order to enable the Internet of Things, what kind of infrastructure that do we need to help support the Internet of Things?
Thank you. So I think first we like to think about what our customers want from the Internet of Things. Today we see them monitoring their vehicles, optimizing their maintenance and repair operations, controlling the flow of the goods, and so on. So what do they need? For example, if there is a robot that's controlling the flow of goods on a shelf, or if you're operating a remote surgery, you need efficient networks, you need strong connectivity. That's why today we have 4.5G, we will have 5G. We need bigger and better networks with fiber and fixed networks. So to me, that's number one, is we need to have the strong and reliable networks. Second, if we're going to have 50 billion devices and a lot of connected objects, we really need them to be efficient, because they will control all the business processes, and we need efficiency within that. So we cannot have, for example, one person replacing the batteries of 50 billion objects, even if it's 1 year. You can do the math. It will be, no business case will fly. So we need efficient networks, we need efficient use of electricity, so that's why we will have the LP1 with the LoRa, Sigfox, and so on. And of course we need really efficient electricity usage. We cannot operate a telecom network paying 150% premium for electricity. So that's the second part, which is really having efficiency within the network, both for power and for spectrum, which I didn't mention before. The third thing to me, and the last thing, is really, and we've seen it as a consistent theme here, is the explosion of data. So we'll have all these connected objects sending so many data, and we need to manage the data. So we need infrastructures for big data platforms. We need data centers, reliable data centers. At Orange, we have thousands of square meters with a lot of rack units, hundreds of rack units, to really support the transformation of our business customers to do all this. So to me, again, summarize it, it's fast, reliable connectivity, we need efficiency in power and spectrum, and we need the platforms for data.
Good. So I'll come back to Salam. Assuming we have all this kind of infrastructure and all these devices, this will raise security issues. How do you think we can overcome these challenges in security issues?
So thank you for this question, because as you know, nothing is for free in this world, right? So for all the good things you've heard, there's a lot of very bad things happening that I am not sure we are ready for. Why? Because of the quantity of the devices and the kind, their kind. You heard 500 billion devices, 5 times the population. These are mostly consumer electronics devices. So they're sensors, they're light bulbs, they're cameras in your home. And you've heard, and the manufacturers are not at all interested to build security by design, because very quickly they want to shove these millions, billions of devices out at the lowest possible cost. You heard about the Myria attacks last September, when the attackers used cameras in your homes, one brand. 200,000 cameras were used to bring down the DIN servers that brought down all the services to Twitter, Netflix, and other providers. How did this happen? The cameras came out of China with admin as the username and password. Okay? Very easy. So that's the first threat. The second one is, for the first time now with these devices, it's risk to our personal lives and property. So if they hack your car, you lose $70,000 investment? I don't know. What if you hack into the camera that is taking a picture of your baby? Is your baby safe? So what if my refrigerator or my light bulbs conducts an attack on my refrigerator, and all of a sudden I have no food? Yeah? So for the first time now, it's not anymore that the server at the company got hacked or got attacked. Now we're talking about my life. What if they decide to kill me because they know I have a pacemaker, right? And they do an attack on that pacemaker, and I die. You know, so it becomes very scary. The third, even scarier thing, we talked about it very much en passant in the previous panel, is critical infrastructure. They said smart meters. Smart meters, guys, electricity, water, gas, this is all now connected with sensors. These are all things now. So what if they hack the electricity system or the water system? Yeah, we'll be without electricity, without water. So we are living in an increasingly connected world, and I'm not sure that we have increasingly connected solutions. We talked about it a little bit. We know it's not anymore that we have a battleground, command and control. This is the battle, this is the enemy. Take the squad, fire, right? It's not like this anymore. The threats are all around us, and if we don't start thinking differently, more collaboratively, all together, I don't think we're going to find any solution.
Okay, I hope we'll survive. Okay.
I think we will. The cockroaches will.
Okay, so Omar and your startups support, as you know, I talked about that. I'm now partnering with Omnia for last year for supporting the next IoT startups. So I'm interested to know more also, and maybe the young people here interested what are the challenges and opportunities facing startups in IoT in our region.
So it's difficult to follow Salam after she gave us this picture of doom and gloom in the universe. We're all going to die. If you like her version of the world, you should watch Black Mirror, BBC series. Yeah. It is a deep exploration about all the ways that technology can be terrible in our future. I tend to be a techno-optimist. I believe that technology is going to improve our lives in most ways, and that startups will play a big role in that as well. And there is a lot of tech startups that are already taking place, IoT startups in the Middle East. I'll mention one that is helping our lives, something called Slider. If you're a smoker and ever tried to quit smoking, it's a little smart lighter, and you smoke with it a few days and it knows how much you smoke, and then over time it starts to beep when it's time for you to smoke, but it creates longer and longer intervals between your cigarettes so that it slowly starts to wean you off of smoking. That's a pretty nice thing in your life. Anyone who's used devices that help you maintain a healthy lifestyle, right? So you know how many steps you walked, how many steps you climbed, your heart rate, and in many ways can compare yourself with all these other people to make sure that you are staying healthy. And there are other B2B applications. One that I'm really excited about in the Middle East is a company called Katana, which is doing the first, they call it the Internet of Chickens. Right? So there are a bunch of sensors that they put inside chicken coops for chicken farms, not manufacturers, farms. And these IoT devices, they keep track of humidity and ammonia, and all of these things go into a calculation called the Chicken Happiness Index, which essentially helps to optimize the productivity of the chickens in the coop. I think all of those are great things, although I completely understand Salam's version of the world. I appreciate it fully, and I see those threats for sure. But there are certainly challenges facing anyone who's doing IoT in the region, and opportunities. Opportunities are today, governments and large corporates have woken up to the fact that, and especially telcos, that the future of their business is no longer connectivity, it's no longer data, it's no longer telephony, it's these ICT services, right? They want to provide services to industry, and so there are opportunities for startups to collaborate, whether with governments or with large enterprises, to deliver IoT solutions. The flip side of this, of course, is that governments and large enterprises and telcos can be notoriously difficult to collaborate with as a small organization. And so I see a lot of startups kind of hit a wall, get really frustrated. And that's something that we have to figure out how to broker, whether it's banks or telcos or government, how to help startups get access to decision makers and do collaborations that are meaningful. I would say some of the other challenges are really around the fact that it is Internet of Things. So there are physical products at hand. And so most of the tech startups that are operating today in the region, they're marketplaces or they're content plays, and there's no actual devices. And so there's a whole value chain that's disappeared and they don't have to worry about. Manufacturing, wholesale, distribution, retail. All of these things are challenges. We've seen IoT devices in the region have a lot of buzz. Instabeat, the smart swimming goggles. And those are great. They help you maintain how fast you're swimming and your heart rate and all of these things. But they've hit a lot of snags in terms of having to, being able to manufacture in China and distribute to people who want them all over the world. It's much harder when you're working with an actual thing that needs to be shipped around and bought and serviced, and if someone has a problem with it, they complain, you have to fix it. And of course, certainly, infrastructure and openness in terms of the government, regulatory frameworks, all of these things are going to be challenges for entrepreneurs. So I think the Smart Cities session, Dubai is doing a lot of things where they want to open up all of their data and allow people to build on it. I think these are exciting opportunities. Governments need to really think about how they can open up while ensuring that they are meeting all of the demands of privacy and risk that need to be managed.
Thanks for the introduction to the next question to Jamil. So based on that, what kind of challenges and opportunities facing the IoT from the policy's point of view?
Thank you. First, I'd like to actually start going back. I think there were earlier in this session, in other sessions, we discussed humanity in general, scientists, engineers, etc. We're trying to improve our lives. We're trying to achieve probably technological singularity. And there has been a lot of questions around there. The truth is, today, there aren't any actually ubiquitous computing or ubiquitous connectivity not only within developing countries, but within Northern Europe, within the US. Not alone to say that there are challenges with interoperability. There are today 400 standards for IoT. How are these going to connect together? Rules and regulations, adaptability. Who's going to fork out the money? Who's going to be the first investor? What is the return on investment? Most companies are reluctant to invest today because we really don't know the value of the return on investment and how fast we can make our money back. In addition, nobody wants to go first. So after all, the way that I see it is it's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be a hybrid between the government adapting some of these policies and procedures and making things easier, and probably the industries themselves creating small islands. So for instance, I see the healthcare industry building its own Internet of Things, the automotive industry building its own Internet of Things, and then connecting things together and becoming everything. That's ultimately what I see.
Okay, so I'll go to Asma about this point, especially the industry. How do you think the IoT will change the nature of our industry?
So that's interesting, and I'm actually just going to comment on both points made earlier. Is that essentially IoT is really like an ecosystem play. So because the solution is so holistic that there's no one party that can lead the whole innovative solution. You've got a party that is going to take care of the sensors. You have to merge, OT with IT. You have to bring in the structured and unstructured data. So any solution that is built in silo, I don't believe that it's going to be successful. So it really needs a strong ecosystem in play where we include the startups, where we include device partners, where we include, network partners to be able to really bring value to the customers. Now, when we talk about industries, we see in the region, there are a couple of industries that are really leading this conversation. Now, some of that, but at the end of the day, they're really addressing some major issues that they want to address. So for example, at the end of the day, they talk about what kind of value do they want from any IoT solution. One thing that is leading the conversation is in terms of operational efficiency and really impacting the cost of any company. Now, you see a lot of asset-intensive companies, for example, manufacturing, oil and gas, playing a huge role and really working on those kind of solutions. In the previous panel, where we were talking about smart cities, they raised both Chris and, sorry, I'm forgetting. So they mentioned a couple of points, right? That the connectivity of pumps, right? If your pump is not working, you're able to get real-time notifications, be able to raise the work order immediately, and the response goes. So you're able to maintain a machine before it breaks down. This has huge implications to the bottom line of any company, right? You're talking about massive units which cost millions of dollars. So to be able to maintain these machines before they break down is a huge value for any company. So that's one part. The other areas we're looking at in terms of the value is a lot of it is customer engagement. And this is personally for me a very interesting part, and you see a lot of electronic companies playing a huge role in this. And I'm going to give an example of an international company that IBM is working with, Whirlpool. So what Whirlpool is doing is it's now creating a connected washing machine. Now, if you look back, before they were connected washing machines, what Whirlpool would do is sell this unit to a mid-supplier, any supermarket, that is going to sell this machine to the end user. So there is virtually no relationship between Whirlpool and the end consumer. Once they sell it to the middleman, that's it, the relationship dies right there. But now that they're able to make connected devices, the result is that they have a huge relationship with the end user. They're able to understand how this user is using this washing machine, right? And this connected device is now sending information to their customer service department. And they predict that now that they're able to identify the issues in a washing machine even before the customer calls. This is saving them almost 70% of the customer services cost that they have. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that they're able to identify how a person is actually using it and what are its using patterns. And this gets interesting because they did a research and they found out that if you are a couple, you normally wash clothes approximately 4 to 5 kilograms per week, right? So you have a washing machine which is connected, you're getting data that every week this couple is washing clothes 4 to 5 kgs a week. Then all of a sudden, the load of washing machine changes to 12 kgs and you're getting this data. So you're able to now understand, hey, there's something that happened in the life of this individual at the end of the day. Maybe they've got relatives with them. Maybe they had a new baby. So this insight then gives you an opportunity to cross-sell and upsell, be able to really like connect with the customers and have that relationship throughout that journey. So these are a couple of like, but because at the end of the day, right, we're looking at the value that it's providing to the customers. So this is what we're seeing in the market right now.
Can I add a quick thing here? I think I could see Salam's face go a little bit about all the data that they're collecting. But some of this stuff is scary. Like, they'll know that you're pregnant before you're pregnant. They'll know that before you because you just haven't figured it out. But like, you start doing things on the internet and they gather data and they know, like, people who are recently pregnant end up doing these behaviors. And it's like, they can know a ton of information about you that you didn't even anticipate. All of a sudden you get an email like, hello, congratulations on your baby. Anyways.
Yeah, it's that extreme.
Give them consent.
Only if you give them consent. I hope so. I have a smart washing machine, so I hope it's not heading up all my dirty laundry to the world, literally.
Literally.
So
You don't have a smart washing machine. You have a computer that does washing. And you also have a computer that cools the food. And you also have a computer that does other stuff, right? So they're all computers.
Actually, we do give consent because nobody reads this long list. We just say, okay, today, your vacuum cleaner, the robotic vacuum cleaner can actually makes a map out of your home, exactly know where you are, and any hacker or intruder can actually have this access to your home. Talk about security. iRoomba and others.
So Al-Ana Doom, eh? Al-Ana Doom Day.
No, so, and this is maybe so they can tell you need a new coffee table.
Yeah.
Right? There's a gap in there's a new coffee table.
There you go.
Right? That's one.
So let me go to Haider about this, especially in our lives. How the Internet of Things and the convergence of all these technologies together would affect our life, especially if we are talking not from this side of personal, but for the financial, the fintech.
Since this is the second day of the forum and we have seen other sessions before, I think we have this phenomena, this Internet of Things and Internet of Everything coming, but also we need to calculate that in light of the blockchain wave, the smart cities wave, the crowd apps wave, other kind of convergence between not technologies but rather families of technologies and categories of technologies. So we need to look at that from the big picture point of view. The other thing which is very important in my judgment is that, and from our actual observation, is that these phenomena has behavioral and personal ramifications and implications. So either you deal with that or someone will deal it for you. Either you standardize or someone will standardize for you. Either you regulate or someone will regulate for you. Either you manage or someone will. It will not be a jungle. Either you adopt the European FCC, American FCC standard or the European standard or your own national standard. So, and if you adopt, for example, the European standard, then you are adopting the European culture. So here, I mean, there's a huge responsibility, not only in the hands of the technology producers and technology adopters or marketers or promoters, but rather on those who look at the society. For example, sociologists, psychologists, college professors, TV debates, TV programs, awareness, villages, cities. So we have the society need to look at this thing, including the economic and financial that you mentioned, because comes with these things connected on the internet is financial transactions, whether we like it or not. Financial transactions means equity, means money, means dispute, possible dispute between people, and therefore we don't want to let the programmers or the developers take care of all of this ecosystem. Each one need to, each specialized agency or person need to look at their part of the thing, because I maintain my position that this is a huge wave that is coming to us.
Nice. So let me take a few quick questions. Start with Salam about, now from the positive side, in order to have all this realized in the positive way, what kind of mindset do we need from our society in order to adopt the Internet of Things?
So thank you. So Haidar started talking about this. A lot of panels started talking about this. First, from the technology point of view, from a security perspective, we as consumers have to start demanding security by design. So today, with computers, with all technology, the technology is shipped, and we know it's not perfect. And then, you know, every 6 months, 1 month, we have these patches and upgrades. In the context of Internet of Things, imagine that your wife is delivering a baby at 3 o'clock in the morning. You go down to the car to go to the hospital, and the car is doing an upgrade. Yeah? So we need to demand security by design. This is, you know, my organization, Internet Society, is working with manufacturers on that, for example. We think this is a very big thing. The second thing is, I'm not really talking about doomsday, because change is coming. You know, what we heard about is coming. We have been talking about this for 2 days. So technology is coming. Ubiquitous connectivity is here. But what interests me is that people are aware of this. And this is a change in the mindset. So now we cannot think of security as computer security anymore. We have to think about everything security. We have to secure the computer. We have to secure the service. We have to secure the databases that are being generated. You know, so it's not anymore one thing security, is everything security. And the way to solve the problem, we keep on talking about this, but again, it's not command and control. You know, there's a battlefield, send the army, shoot. We're not living in a world like this anymore, and we really have to, I have to repeat this many times, like Haidar also started, we have to start finding the solutions together, talk more to each other, and find out where each person's responsibility is. In the world of tomorrow, a non-aware consumer, a stupid consumer, is a dead consumer. Yeah? We won't be able neither to use the technology. I mean, you know, like my mom cannot operate my washing machine and my refrigerator anymore, and maybe I won't be able to operate the things that are connected in 10 years, right? So there's a lot of emphasis here on awareness of the people so that they are chooser and not only consumer of this technology.
Yeah, and in terms of the future, I'll go back to Omar, and especially are dealing with the startups and new innovators. In your opinion, what kind of jobs these innovators will create, and what kind of skills we need for the future generations?
You know, I think this is I can tell you the answer that I had already prepared, but with where the conversation is going, I think it's a different answer that I'll give you. Noah Yuval Harari, if you guys have read Homo Deus or Sapiens, very popular books these days, he talks about a class of people he calls the unemployables, right? And I think this is a really interesting concept. He talks that, you know, as a result of the Industrial Revolution, we had a lot of people who were unemployed, because they were doing things that machines could do better. But then they figured out that there were still other things that they could do better than machines. Whether that was thinking work, service work, emotional work like care, creative work, all of these things were areas that humans still had an advantage over computers. I think today we're rapidly entering, I think there's a tie here between IoT generating tons of data, which is being fed into machines that are becoming smarter, and that's artificial intelligence. And we're entering into an era where the unemployables are people who cannot do anything better than a computer can. leave that hickey for a pause for a second. Because I actually do think that these people this is going to happen in many ways. Lots of countries are debating and discussing universal basic income because we understand that there are places where people will simply not be able to get a job because computers will be better than them at everything. And so then, what are the skill sets that we need to invest in? Well, first of all, someone has got to build these computers and make them smarter. So certainly, we have a huge gap in when it comes to practical technology skill sets, coding skill sets, data and analytics skill sets, AI skill sets, even stuff like user interface design. Everything is going to have a user interface in the future. Your fridge is going to have a screen, and someone needs to design a seamless experience that your grandmother will be able to use. And so these are massive skill sets that are going to be available in the future. And certainly then the more creative and emotional skill set. Although I think that as computers get smarter, I really do ask myself what things are going to remain for us to do.
Yeah, we need to increase our emotions.
Hire more women.
No. Okay.
No, I think that computers today can simulate emotion even if they can't understand it, right? They can read cues on your face, probably read your temperature, your heart rate, and give back to you. They can read all the small motions on your smile and your face. They can't really understand that you're happy or sad, but they can read, assess, and respond correctly. And eventually that will become a better and more natural understanding.
Yeah. So I'll leave the last question to Amr. So what's next? What's after this IoT and all this?
So I think what's next is more than the technology is the business side of it, is the usage of Internet of Things and Internet of Everything. It's the convergence between technology and businesses. We need to change the way we do business, rethink about business processes, and re-engineer them from down. So it will change from monitoring the number of connected objects to how do we use these connected objects. I like to think about how we used to measure internet. 10 years ago, we used to think about the penetration or number of subscribers. Now, if we want to know how internet is used, we look at terabytes per day and so on. So what I think next is not only more connected objects, but you will have more usage for the connected objects. So you will not have the car saying, I'm here and I'm driving at 60 kilometers per second. The car will tell you, I'm here driving at 60 kilometers per second. The temperature is so and so. I'm carrying milk. And as Jamil said, the brain will say, okay, I see you're going so fast, and I think you need to turn up the AC a little bit. And I think I'm detecting a demand signal from one of our connected shelves. I think you need to change your route and go somewhere else to satisfy the demand. So this will be really more usage, and maybe we measure it by the $19 trillion that will generate to the overall economy of Internet of Things.
So it's next is what we have to think about, what we have to improve us personally and our thinking style. It's not only the technology, it's the business, the way we are doing things. So we'll leave now the floor to the audience. If there are some questions we have.
If you don't mind, I'd like to actually just comment on one thing and go back to basics about jobs and security and technology replacing human beings. I'd like to actually take us back to basics. When we used to ride horses and camels, we had only two jobs, the saddler and the people that actually make the horseshoes and etc. When the evolution of the car happened, we needed actually somebody to do the brakes, the mechanics, the oil. The saddler actually started making upholstery for the actual car, and etc., etc. Humans, I want to pause for a minute here, and humans are always survivors. We have actually conquered the world, and we are not the strongest creatures, but we're smarter. And I hate the word smart devices. I hate it with passion, because they're not smart, they're adaptive. We actually sit here and program it. My name is Jamil. My son and daughter is so-and-so. In case of emergency, call this. I allow it to enter my life, and I can allow it to exit any moment that I need to.
I just cannot disagree more with you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, that may have been true in the past when computers couldn't learn. But now the difference is that computers are learning. They are becoming better at predicting, at anticipating. They no longer need us to tell them what to do. They are telling us before we know what to do that we need to do it. And so in a world where, yes, computers had to be programmed to understand every item discretely, maybe. But today they don't need you to tell them who your sister is. They've seen how many times you call her, that you call her this at that time, or I think they're able to now extract from data all sorts of insights that they don't need you to tell them anymore. And I think that they are getting smarter. And even you mentioned the singularity, right? We're talking about a point where computers will be able to make smarter computers than them and eventually really, in many ways, not need us anymore. And so I don't 100% agree with you on this. Sorry.
No, I actually agree. Although I think that we're a little far away from technological singularity, but I do agree. And this is where the integration and the partnership between IoT and AI comes in play, is that when you have this data that is being created, the system is able to identify these patterns and it's able to continuously learn about you and be able to understand the context that, hey, you responded to X things because it was 40 degrees temperature outside, and then be able to interact. So definitely, I do agree that we're definitely smart.
Yeah, it knows what movies I like, it knows what music I listen to before I do. It can recommend things I never knew.
Not before, you actually allow it, but it's actually it's a great debate. But ultimately, I think if you sit, so there's a game Go, which is a Chinese game. The computer with artificial intelligence was able to beat the human beings after watching 10 million steps and 1 million hours of video. If we humans have actually the tenacity to do the same, we will survive. Of course, we will not survive if we actually sit down as a couch potato and expect that, you know what, I can beat the computer. I still think we'll survive. And I think it's a long way. I disagree with Stephen Hawking, I disagree with Elon Musk, and I think even after 100 years, we'll beat them. We'll beat them to the ground. But however, we will be augmented. We will be augmented with certain computer-generated, I'd say, devices into our hands and bodies.
Yeah. So the time is up, and give the floor. Just one comment. As a human being, we are even smarter, and we will survive. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So, please.
Well, good. We got some debate. That's good.
Hello? So to stress on the fact that we talked about the singularity, Peter Diamandis mentions that at 2030, machines will become as smart as humans and not as emotional as humans. So I want to stress on that one, and I agree with Omar on it. The second thing is Jamil, you disagree with Elon Musk, however, you agree with the fact that we will have enhanced chips in us to be smarter. Elon Musk is working on Neuralink, so how do you respond to that?
It's good. So let's pause a minute and talk about technological singularity. In order for technological singularity to happen, and most people are actually saying it's by 2029, one of the major things that you need to look at is you're looking at Moore's law. Well, you know what, actually with solid state, Moore's law himself, Moore himself said it's not going to happen because it can't happen. That's actually in addition to generating data, that's in addition to actually there are rural areas where we don't have internet. So after all, there will be some kind of a technological advancement. But it will not be, you know, for example, like an iRobot movie where the world will end and, you know, robots will take over. I strongly disagree, and I think actually humans are fast enough. Humans who've programmed these machines, and you need to connect all of these together, machines, and have them understand the language. We are able to take them out by probably disconnecting actually the power, disconnecting the generation, disconnecting the battery. But there is something that we need to sit down and contemplate and talk about. We do need to advance ourselves and not rely on these machines. Back in the day, I used to remember every single number of my mother, my father, my sisters, my neighbors. Then the technological advancement took me to a 1 talk, 2 talk. And now, actually, I don't remember any numbers unless it's really a cool number. That's something that you need to reprogram and retrain yourself. So the key and the name of the game is adaptability and versatility. You can, well, it depends.
We can never watch those million hours of video footage. That's not physically possible for us. Whereas a computer can watch them and learn from them extremely quickly, and then watch another million.
Which is why the computer is a really great companion in terms of really working efficiently. So we need to, I think the conversation now has steered into a human versus machine. The reality is that right now we are at a stage, and we will continue to be at a stage where we work together just to work more efficiently and get more value of the data that's available.
So the lion is stronger, the whale is stronger, and we conquered both of them. Hell with machines.
So let me take the, okay.
No, they have a lifetime. Your car actually has a lifetime.
RMC is...
Let's take the next question.
It's great how this is Internet of Things, and it's become a mission of survival. Right. I think you'll all agree with me. It's been an interesting, intriguing, productive discussion. Please put your hands together for our panelists and our moderator as well. Right, guess what? We are about to have a coffee break. Now, the coffee you're about to have, you will need it, because the next session is very intriguing indeed. Please join us back here at... what time? 4:30. Join us back here at 4:30 for something very intriguing indeed.